What I would love more than anything if I were to die this year is to be in my Kendrick Lamar era. I'd love to just say what's on my mind and actually that effectively making me a ton of money and famous. Like, I would absolutely love that. I also want to be able to use hate and publicly bully people who've done tremendous harm behind closed doors to make myself famous. Make a ton of money. You know who else does it really well? 50 Cent. And then the other person is Taylor Swift. Their whole branding is like calling people out, but do we see women of color who do the same thing and become successful and significant? Nope. There's a reason for it, because women of color, no matter how you see yourself and what you think about yourself, people see you as a second-class citizen and a subhuman. Okay, let me correct that. This also includes white women who do not have a lot of privilege. When you look at Taylor Swift and you think, I'm a white woman, I relate to Taylor Swift, I'm the same. I can pull off what she's doing. You're absolutely definitely wrong. Taylor Swift is a woman, she had limitations, and I'm talking about before she became a billionaire. She still had a ton of privilege. She comes from a very privileged family, she has a ton of family backup, a huge network of successful, powerful people because of her family upbringing and lineage. So if you don't already have that and the wealth and everything that goes with it, then no, you cannot be using her strategies to boost up your brand and do the same. Now, we have men of color like Kendrick Lamar and 50 Cent. They can do it because, why? Male privilege. When women who do not have the same privilege do the same thing, using the same strategy as these characters or public figures, or you've read something and the 48 Laws of Power, or you read 50 Cent's book, The 50th Law, and you try to replicate the same thing, guess what? You forgot about having intersectional intelligence. If you don't navigate with that, then you're going to be screwed. And it won't be necessarily men coming after you, it'll be other women who even look like you. For haters to be effective, they don't necessarily have to be more privileged than you. If there are enough people who want to shit on you and hate on you, then that underprivileged hater is going to be effective. It's very much how pick-me's gang up against a woman, using misogyny, which is a natural human condition, as an advantage. I'm here to make a bold statement. Performative narcissistic feminism is the biggest obstacle in glass ceiling for women. First, we have women who exploit and betray other women, use feminism as their public brand to sell to women supporting women, blah, 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 blah. Usually these women embody a type of personal brand that is like a bestie, big sister energy, kind of nurturing, acting well balanced, but actually as a person, they're extremely dysregulated and doesn't care about human rights at all. Another term for this, performative narcissistic feminism, is white feminism, but people often think that white feminism is only geared towards white women. That's not true. It's a sociological term called white feminism. Anybody, any woman can be a white feminist. I'm not talking about a particular race or ethnicity of the type of women who do this. I'm going to call it performative narcissistic feminism. The core of narcissism is colonialism and exploitation. That element has to be there. In order for someone to be quote-unquote narcissistic, the performance part is to control the perception so they can fulfill their ulterior motive and get away with it. At the same time, garner a lot of sympathy, empathy, and popularity too. You know exactly the type of people I'm talking about. But behind closed doors, they are the worst exploitators of women. They don't want to pay women, or they think that they can scam a woman, take her for a ride, take her intellectual property and use it to gain power, to sell that, to gain money. And at the same time, this is a very important aspect, they want to erase that person from existence. The biggest disrespect is erasure, especially after they have benefited greatly from that woman's work, presence, nurture, energy, support, etc. All of you can relate to this. If you're a woman, you cannot have gotten anywhere in your life as an adult without having experienced this. And I say this both in your professional and personal life too. A big issue is that women tend to forget that this happened because it was so normalized to them. Like, your family's been doing this to you forever. Whatever you accomplish and create is not valued as much. But then when a man in your family does it, and let's say that he even does much less, it's such a freaking big deal. So as women, we've all experienced this. This is the core of patriarchy, is to devalue women. But women do this to women, and that's why patriarchy is alive and well. And the type of women who do this the best and have the worst consequential impact are the ones who pretend to be woke, put themselves out as business owners or have leadership positions, or some of them try to have those kinds of positions, but they never really end up doing it, but still they can do a lot of damage, especially if another woman has created space for them, gave them opportunities, taught them very valuable skills and lessons to to better their life in general, to make more money, etc. One of my core memories is when I was in my 20s, I introduced a friend of mine to another acquaintance through a gathering. I didn't find out that those two got married after years and years. Mind you, they were far away, they lived in a different city. I was visiting and I knew people in different groups and I introduced them to each other. But here's the thing, I don't think either one of those people ever thought of it as a big deal. They're like, oh, she's not like super close to us, whatever went through their mind. But I do wonder, if I were a white man, would they have done the same thing? Would they have thought, you know what, we met through this white man, but he's not really significant, so let's not even tell him that we're getting married, or even thank that person to have introduced us to each other, to bring us together, to share our lives. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer, but when people have been so conditioned with misogyny, it's not a big deal at all. Isn't it like by default that she's supposed to be creating a lot of magic everywhere she goes? Isn't it her responsibility? Isn't it an entitlement that she serves people and doesn't get any credit? The moment somebody doesn't value you, especially in public, they downplay you, they try to erase your efforts or downgrade or dismiss the amount of significance that you had in their success or achievement, happiness, whatever it is, that is a clear sign of how they actually feel about you. That's why just because you have talents, you have success, it doesn't mean that you should help them. I started this video talking about I would love to be in my Kendrick Lamar era because I love to call out all of these people by their name. Like, I would absolutely love that. Or at the very least, be like Taylor Swift. Tell those stories. I would love to. Would you actually watch my videos if I were to tell you the crazy ass stories I went through? Comment down below and let me know. And now I'm gonna read you one of the messages I got in our Be Seen Get Paid business program, where one of our members actually shared an issue that she was coming up with, which is very much relevant to what we're going through right now. She said, I'm gonna read it out. I want to be very vulnerable and talk about your most recent story. The story that she's referring to is my Instagram story, where I post very frequently, my Instagram too. So if you don't follow me there, please go ahead and follow me there because you don't see the same content here necessarily. The post I talked about was how women who exploit and betray women are the ones who use women supporting women as their capitalistic brand. You know, just make money with feminism, but be the shittiest, even worse than misogynistic men towards women. That type of person. She goes, I personally know someone who portrays herself as a woman supporting women and as very authentic. She is charming, has been able to get many people to support her emotionally and financially. However, she's terrible capitalist and narcissistic abuser. She has abused all of her relationships, even going as far as to ask money from a close personal friend of mine and leech off of my social capital. Oh my gosh, key. We have to talk about this. And rob a roommate out of several months of rent with promises to pay her back. Understanding your teachings, I know that she is broke because she's a liability and not an energetic match for money. I have removed her from all my socials and have attempted to weed out friends we have in common. However, she's a family member and has entrenched herself in my social circle. I want to warn everybody about her. However, it feels like it's not going to make a difference and it will make me look weak. I'm not sure how to navigate this massive liability. Such a good question, because guess what happens when a woman opens her mouth and tells the truth? Who are people going to doubt first? Abuse can only happen in secret. The narcissist can only curate the perception as long as it works, because people around them are too dull and unaware of social cues, and most people don't have the ability to read people. People typically pick the wrong side. They think the victim is the problem and the perpetrator is innocent. This is the whole problem with the world that we have. This is how people vote against their best interest. You're just like, what are you doing? But those people think they're making a really good decision. But look at all these boy moms, enablers, misogynistic women who hate on other women. There's mother-in-laws and sister-in-laws who enable the abuse. These are the exact same story. This is the condition, right? So being really upfront come with risks for women. What we can do is approach people who already have a fairly good relationship with us and tell them instances, events, not tell them what you think about this horrible person who's an abuser, but talk tangibly about what they have done and let the other person make the decision. If you say this person's an abuser, everyone's gonna be like, but what were you wearing? They're gonna be like, but is there more to the story? Oh, we need context. Basically doubting you. Do you have proof? Do you have photos? You get the idea, right? You get the idea. So the best way is to be a little more subtle and start with a few people and tell them about the things that you've experienced with this person tangibly and let them make the decision. When there's already initial trust, people are more likely to believe you. If people don't already have some kind of trust built with you, or if you're approaching people who already are very much warmed up by the other party, the abuser, the problematic person, then you're gonna have less impact. And sometimes, depending on the temperament of the person that you're dealing with, that person can become a huge problem towards you. There are obviously risks, but not doing anything is also a risk too, because that means you're enabling, you're permissive, you're accepting, and you're actually giving the abuser, the perpetrator, powergasm, the feeling of winning, and they're just gonna keep collecting more power to overthrow you. 2 weeks ago, I posted a video on stop taking the high road, because I've done that way too much in my life, and as women, we have been conditioned that this is the right way to approach certain interpersonal conflict. Can't be further from truth, because that taking the high road is a form of pleasing, but we are not taught to believe that. We're not taught to see the negative consequences, the personal risk that you put yourself under when you do that, your reputation, your brand. Well, if you have a pretty small life, then you're not going to see huge consequences. But if you have a business, if you're in a high-stake leadership position and you act like the good girl, taking the high road, being diplomatic, then you're going to have severe consequences. And I've experienced this myself in business too. Once upon a time, I had this client who was actually an acquaintance first and sort of a friend, and then became a client. And I had opened a particular coaching program. It was actually called Be Seen Get Paid as well. The Be Seen Get Paid now is like totally different, but back then that was the initial Be Seen Get Paid. And this woman, I allowed her into my space, right? I invited her into my network. Well, this woman is one of those women supporting women type of person, and what she ended up doing is that she covertly started hijacking my network. It's a group program, and business is, it challenges a lot of good girl mindset. Like, you can't become a successful business owner with a good girl mindset. Business is very triggering because it challenges all of your good girl programming mindset, what you think is normal, what you've been accepting. And in comes this woman, goes to my individual clients. Now, this is a group program, so clients do not have this individual relationship with me. And basically start telling them like the opposite of what I'm recommending, which is more comfortable, what makes sense for the good girl mindset. And at the same time, during coaching calls, she started to position herself as one-upping me, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, that's the opposite what I asked you to do. She's like, oh, it's working for me. So then she started to influence the people in that group to follow her, and she started to poach my clients. That's a nutshell of the story. There were some other aspects that were happening at the same time, but it was too messed up for me to fix it. So I closed that group, and then I just started over again. The key is that I taught that person everything they needed to make their like first 8K a month. Okay, the key is that person had like no foundation, nothing when they came in, and I was like their first coach, and I helped them so much. And she basically took the nurture, the support, and all of that, and exploited it, and then betrayed the person who gave them the tools. If that person was much better at exploiting, it would have been smarter to do just a little bit of damage, but mostly keep up the relationship with me, so then they can get more benefit and actually continue to succeed. Because 5 years later, they're still in their day job. Obviously, they weren't able to progress further than what they were able to take, and that person really destroyed the whole network and tried to hijack it. Like, it's like a parasite, right? You come in and it's like, you can coexist symbiotically. No, I'm not happy with being symbiotic. I need to exploit as much as possible right now, with greed, with competitiveness, with one-upping. No one can be better than me. And then as a consequence, destroy the whole network that somebody else has built, a community. You know, it's like destroy everything for my temporary gain. That's a parasite, right? I have a lot of vast experience with women because I work with so many women. So let's say an average person will have exposure to maybe 10 to 20 core women in any given time in their life. But for me, it's just more because I work in my business with women, and I have like hundreds of clients per year. So it makes sense, right? Like I'm just gonna have a very, not just nuance, but also it's like experiences and relationship with women on steroids. Like I just have, it's just that much more magnified. Also, for women in business, particularly, when you start succeeding and you start gaining momentum, making a lot of money or whatever it is, it applies to you, like maybe you're reaching social media fame, then you have a lot of women immediately near you who realize they can't do the same thing, who have been your friends or those you thought were your allies, those you even helped turn against you. Because it triggers their ego. The ego is the definition of an underdeveloped mindset. That is in the scale of unconsciousness, that's the scarcity zone. If you know the Dr. Hawkins chart of consciousness, which I cannot post here because his foundation does not like it when people use their diagram, you're just gonna have to go look it up. In the scale of consciousness by Dr. Hawkins, at the very bottom is shame, right? So like from shame to anger, pride, like the ego is like pride, you know? People progress from shame and apathy, not being able to do anything, and then they start feeding off someone else's nurture and support. And when they get to that dangerous area of like anger and pride, that's when they want to behead the person that's helped them, like cut off the hand that's been holding them. So let's say that this person hears something that they don't want to hear, something to do with accountability or something that goes against what they already believe is the right thing, something that challenges them at the very deep core level, or they see you as a competition because they don't know any other way to relate to women. When women have been raised in misogyny, and like it goes back to early childhood experiences, if you've never had nurturing, supportive relationship with a woman figure, you are in danger of not being able to recognize who is supportive and nurturing and which women are being nice to exploit you. The distrust towards women is a really difficult one because even if you benefit a lot from another woman, the distrust is always hanging over. I can do this work and work with women because I've had mostly very positive experiences with women in my life. I've been held space by women multiple times, older women, and that's why I'm able to show up the way I am. And it took me quite a long time to realize that most women's experiences have been betrayal and exploitation by their mother, aunt, sister, other women figures in their life too. Like they're competitive towards them, put them down, they're contemptuous. This is women competing in patriarchy to be the better one. Is a survival coping mechanism, which is a very negative coping mechanism. But when that's been the normal discourse in a woman's life, and that woman has to be dealing with other women, and mind you, that woman that I was telling you about in my story, she had horrible relationships with women, starting with her mother, her sister, like everybody. And as she started to warm up with me, that ego started to come out. And oftentimes I call her being very contemptuous and dismissive in our personal interactions, which at the time I had much less awareness too, because I was less experienced than I am right now. And my desire to like that person, I decided to dismiss some of that and chalk it up to underdevelopment, immaturity, and lack of social elegance, which is like almost everybody. Social elegance development, something that all of us can do. So I saw it as a small flaw, not necessarily a big deal breaker, and I really should have seen it as a deal breaker, because those are just little signs. And when the opportunity arises, that person will do the things that you will never think to do. Because when there's distrust, apathy, and then that being entitlement and pride, there's no such thing as the right thing or wrong thing. The fact is that those people do know when they're doing something wrong. They do. That's why they hide it. That's why they're covert. It's not that they don't know it. It's more like they don't care, and because of misogyny that they have received, they see other women as their minions, supply, like they have to be better than in their relationship with women. If they're not better than, they can't coexist. They can't be around women who make more money than them, who are more accomplished than them. They'll also evaluate women based on the male gaze. They essentially become a weapon against women in patriarchy, worse than a misogynistic man. Worse because their model is to use women supporting women to control the perception of them. In addition to charm and attractiveness, usually those are their weapon to get away with whatever they're doing. What I would personally love to see is a world where women are valued more, so that we can talk about these issues openly and not have to dance around the topic so much about what happens to us. For those of you who have experienced tremendous growth or shifts in your life, and you've made great leaps in your success, in your career, you will and have experienced this already multiple times. Like, there are multiple layers of it. That's why I talk about how the good girl can never be the ally to the bad bitch, because the good girl's ego is always there, which doesn't allow, she's divided from connecting with other women. She really cannot lean into it. It's like repellent oil to water. She wants to have women's connection, community, all of that which we desire, but she's unable to, because a lot of these judgments and the evaluation through the male gaze, the one-upping and competing is like embedded in her. That's why you cannot ally with the good girl. She will betray you. The good girl also sees women as a resource, just like men do. They don't think about collaboration. They're trying to get women to collaborate. By the way, men do that. They do business transactions with each other all the time. That's how they keep succeeding together so quickly. But women, that has to be taught. I find that that's like the ground foundation work is where we have to start. And in all my coaching programs, like, I'm teaching women how to respect each other. They don't know how to do it. When you've been mistreated all your life, you don't know what respect looks like and feels like. I have experiences too. Like, somebody can wrong you and you like take the high road. That's a man wouldn't do that, especially a privileged man. That's why we need social elegance, right? Because we can't just say and do whatever we want to do. But I'm very curious about this particular community, because you have been diving into the bad bitch work quite a while, and you have been shifting your mindset quite a while. So I'm wondering, like really wondering, and I want you to tell me, do you think, how would you feel if I went into my Kendrick Lamar era? If I were to start telling you all these stories of experience firsthand? Of course, I have to prevent liability, so I have to be careful around that. But would you like to hear the stories is my question. Let me know in the comment section, okay? Because, I mean, I've got lore after lore. I've got lore, like, you ask any woman who's achieved anything at all, and she will also have lore after lore. And I'm wondering, do you want to hear them? Because this kind of systemic problem thrives in secrecy, in privacy. That's what covert abuse is. It thrives in secrecy and privacy. So when you start shining light on it, you uncover it and you expose it where there's nowhere to run. Like, they are in the center, like they're put on stage and now everyone's staring at them. Can the abuse and exploitation continue? Can the disrespect continue? What do you think about my storytelling era? I really do think about my mortality quite a lot. What if I, die this year or very soon or whatever? Anything is possible. I talk about the death list in my power planning workshop. And what comes to my mind quite a lot is all the untold stories. I think they need to be shared. I think they need to help people understand. So I can share some things here publicly, and I can share a lot more in our private membership group, in our bad bitch community, and use it as a guidance and tool to help you make better decisions, to become wise, to see signs early on. And also, of course, much deeper layer in the social elegance program, in our Unleashed Social Elegance cohort. What do you think? I'm just like ranting, so I want to just give you the opportunity to tell me, what do you think? Do you want to hear the stories? Go down and comment. And those of you who are ready to do the bad bitch work, every area of the bad bitch journey, join the community. If you're ready to specifically work in social elegance, go to the social elegance presentation to see if you'd like to join the next cohort. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to reading on your comments.